Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about your AV team, your AVS team, your tech team, your wizards, your nerds, whatever you call the people who run the high technology side of your church. They have an important role to play in the future of your church, and it's time that you realize that. Hello, my name is Matthew, and I pastor the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Peoria, Illinois. This channel is all about exploring, explaining, and extending Adventism into the digital world. Now, lately, we've been talking about church trends and how they inevitably lead us to the conclusion that churches need to be doing ministry online. And this is just as important as whatever in-person ministry you do as a church. If you don't know what in the world I'm talking about, I'll put the links to the previous 2 videos in the description below. So, once upon a time, the average church needed an audiovisual team. By that, we meant a couple of people who knew how to turn on the soundboard and a projector. That's it. That's what so many people signed up for when they joined the AV team. And now, the average church needs tech-minded people to run the sound and video, but also a website, social media, a live stream. Oh, and they spent much of the last year helping everybody in the church know how to get on Zoom. You're on mute, Patrick. Okay, that's not what most of our church team people signed up for. It's like signing up to volunteer for an afternoon at your kid's school and then finding out that you're now a teacher at that school. This means that your tech team is far more important, far more integral to your church's mission than ever before. Now, predictably, churches have been slow to realize how this shift impacts budgets and leadership structures in the church. So here are 5 things I wish churches would know right now about their tech team in 2021. First, your tech team is now an evangelistic team. The person running your sound or operating your camera might be behind the scenes in terms of your church auditorium or sanctuary, but they are on the front lines of your online congregation. They are their eyes and ears. And it doesn't matter how good the pastor's sermon is, if the camera operator is like zooming in and out or not tracking with the pastor as he walks across the stage, that important connection between speaker and audience is broken. And if your tech people are responding to questions on Facebook and misspelling words, it's a mess. Your tech team needs to start thinking evangelistically. Pastors are used to thinking evangelistically. We ask questions of ourselves like, do visitors have a place to sit? Is someone welcoming them and making them feel at home? Do they know where the bathroom is? I need to make sure I go over to that person and say hi. And if I say this in my sermon, how will they take it? Now, the tech team needs to start thinking that way. Camera movements need to be smooth. Transitions need to be clean. You can't fall asleep on the soundboard. Why? Because a visitor who might never set foot in your church building because you guys are weird Adventists, well, that same person might check out your live stream to see what you weird people believe. And if your live stream is run in a way that shouts, "We don't care and we don't know what we're doing," then it's no different than inviting them to come visit your church and just leaving trash strewn over the pews or the chairs and mud on your floors, right? It just says, "We don't care." Now, tech teams tend to think in terms of 3 concentric circles when it comes to gear and things like that. Functionality, operation, and cost. We're looking for gear where these 3 circles overlap. We want the most functionality that is the easiest to use at the lowest cost. But we need to add another concentric circle to that model, user experience or UX. I had a conversation once with a tech person who wanted a new camera. They made the case that the price was affordable, that it could be operated from a computer, and so we wouldn't need someone to stand behind it, right? Very easy to operate. And because the camera could be operated remotely, we could easily use it for a variety of roles. So it's a win-win-win, right? Okay, I asked, but how will it affect the people watching through that camera? If you transition from our main camera, which is of a certain type, to this camera, are the colors going to be way off? Is it going to break the spell? Now, maybe the camera is still worth getting, but you have to add that UX circle to your model. It isn't all about whether or not this piece of tech is easy for you or convenient for you or inexpensive for you. The question is also about how it affects the user or the audience. Those first 3 concentric circles are about me, and it's about my tech team. That fourth circle pushes the tech team to think outside of their own operations, their own comfort zone, and about the effect of their operations on other people. They need to think evangelistically. Your tech team needs to understand how important they are and how important it is that they step up into this new world. Okay, on to number 2. Your tech team needs training for this new world. Chances are your pastor went to school to learn how to teach or preach. Your tech team are probably volunteers who just love working with technology. If they're on the front lines of the digital community, then they need to have some of the training that your pastor got in order to think evangelistically, right? In order to do their job better. Don't just put more responsibility on your tech team's plate and then expect them to rise to the occasion. They need retraining, and the church should be positive about making sure they have what they need. Not just in terms of gear, but in terms of moral support, in terms of knowledge, okay? Now, when it does come to the gear side of things, there are a million YouTube channels out there devoted to showing how different cameras work, how you should light a set, how to live stream. My guess is you found a bunch of those kind of videos over the past year as you figured out Zoom and figured out live streaming and all that. I learned most of what I know about making YouTube videos from watching YouTube videos about how to make YouTube videos. Okay? But don't rely upon YouTube alone for this, because YouTube is a very inefficient way to learn. Say you buy a new Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro, which just came out. You can find videos going through the menus and explaining what aperture is and all of that. But it's hard to find videos that help you with your particular church setup. And if you're like me, then most of those videos leave you wishing they would have gone deeper in one area or another. So here is what I would recommend you do when it comes to training your tech team. First, give them a budget for training. You can tell them to order whatever it is that they want and submit it for reimbursement, but that tends to be counterproductive. Why? Because what if I'm on the tech team and I find an online course that costs $150? If I buy that, will my board have a heart attack? You just don't know what you can spend, so you tend to spend less and you get programs, get materials that aren't exactly what you need or what you would want. If you give the tech team a budget of, say, $300, then they know that that $150 course is perfectly affordable. I think they will end up being more highly trained and more efficiently trained if they know what they can spend up front. Second, look at ways to cross-train. There is no perfect training source because every church setup is different. So you will have to get several overlapping resources. Okay, you could get Caleb Pike's DSLR video shooters online course. It's like $80 and he walks you through a bunch of different cameras. Okay, you just pick the one that you want. So if you want to understand cameras, that's a good place to be. Churchfront has an online course that covers copyright, framing your camera shots, how to use Pro Presenter, and just a whole lot more. It's geared towards larger churches, but I think there's a lot in there that would be helpful. And by the way, none of these people are paying me to recommend them, okay? It's just, there's a bunch of church tech courses out there, so look around and find the ones that meet your needs. I'd also recommend a social media course and, of course, an evangelism course, which might just be your pastor sharing a book or your pastor meeting with your tech team over time. Or you might call a larger church in town and ask to take a tour of their facilities. Or you can pay to have one of those larger church tech people come to train your team. Be creative and be intentional about training your team. Between the internet and area churches around you, there is a lot of knowledge all over the place. So access it. Identify the knowledge gaps that you have and be intentional about filling them in. Okay? On to number 3. Your tech team needs to be bigger. If you're a sound guy or a video girl and you're listening to this, you might be thinking that some of this is just way above what you ever volunteered for, okay? Even if you took a course on Instagram, chances are you're not gonna be as good at using it as, say, that 14-year-old girl in your congregation. So what do? Well, invite that 14-year-old girl to be on your tech team. In the past, social media people weren't considered part of the tech team. Neither were artists. Neither were web designers. Well, guess what? You are all on the tech team now. You get a tech team, and you get a tech team, and you get a tech team. Welcome. Now look, some larger churches divide things between a tech team and a creative team, and if you have enough people, you can do that, okay? Whatever you want to call it, I don't care. You need both types of people on your tech team. And you have people in your church who don't even think of themselves as especially techie, but guess what? They have an iPhone, don't they? They could probably be taught to do something on the tech team. Number 4, your tech team needs an evangelistic style budget. Adventist churches, in particular, have traditionally dropped $5,000 to $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 printing out brochures without breaking a sweat. It is a hugely expensive enterprise, and from that, they might baptize 2, 3, 4, 10 people on a good year. Now, maybe take a year off of doing that and give that budget to your tech team. Can I get an amen from someone out there? Okay? Amen. Now, if you're serious about doing ministry online, give your teams the tool to do it well. Okay, a one-time investment of $5,000 or $10,000 in your team will pay dividends for years and years and years. Be very strategic about the tools you embrace, okay? You can go on YouTube and say, hey, this big church is using this stuff. This must be what we need. Well, it's critical that your tech team and church leaders sit down and begin with the questions of what you want to accomplish. And this is where church leadership comes into play, because it's the job of the elders and the other church leaders to establish a vision and values for the congregation. And this will help your tech team tremendously in figuring out what kind of gear that you guys should have, what kind of software, what kind of streaming that you guys should do, okay? Do you want to have a multi-camera, multi-stream setup for your worship? Do you? Okay, well, how will that help us accomplish our mission as a church? How will that help us realize our vision? How will that align with our values at the church? The best thing church leaders can do is just clarify these things for your tech team, all right? Say, hey, this is where we want to go as a church. How can you as a tech team help us to get there? And will that multi-camera, multi-stream setup, will that help us in that mission, okay? So don't just buy nice shiny things. Don't just shoot a stream out into cyberspace. Try to have specific concrete goals that justify the budget the tech team is asking for. Try to say things like, we need this Zoom software so we can invite the people who watch our live stream to join us on Wednesday for Bible studies, okay? That makes sense. That's very concrete, very specific. It has a real, tangible application, utility for the church's mission, okay? Now, if Joe Smith is watching your live stream for the last 3 weeks and he's starting to connect with you guys, then maybe he's ready for that next step. Now you can see and hear from Joe Smith on Zoom on Wednesday nights as he joins you for prayer meeting. So getting that software gets you to the next step in your goal of inviting Joe Smith to see himself as a part of your church family. Now, not all pieces of text can be justified so clearly. So here's a picture of a church I used to pastor in Tennessee. I love these people, great church, great people. But as you can see, the picture is really on the yellow side. They need some better light on the subject so the people online can see everything more clearly, and seeing everything more clearly is important because it makes it easier to watch and to engage with what is being shown. Is solving this problem, this color problem, worth a small church spending $100? Absolutely. Is it worth spending $10,000 to fix? No. Just have clear objectives and give the tech team a budget that reflects their newfound importance in the mission of the church. All right, last one, number 5. Your tech team needs a seat at the table. Tech team leaders are not always on the church board. They should be. With greater importance in the ministry of the church comes greater weight to their voice at the highest levels where decisions are being made. Also, change your communication habits to make sure that they are in the loop. Maybe the pastor and the tech lead need to spend more time together. But I know in the past, sometimes the tech people are the last people to know what's going on in the church. They're the people, they're like a passive group of people where the singers and the preachers and all that kind of stuff, they're just saying, hey, we need this and we need that. We need to help the tech team to step up and realize that their voice matters, that we want ideas from them, that we want a vision from them, that we want values for their team from them. We want them to share it with the church. You guys are not the people we ask, hey, we need a mic over there, we need a camera over there. Now we want to give you a seat at the table. Now we want your voice to be heard. What are your ideas for our church? Now you may find that you need a new leader for the tech team, because sometimes churches find the most nerdy member of the church and make them the tech lead, right? Because they know the most. But being good at EQing a mic doesn't mean someone is a good leader. So maybe your tech lead that you already have is ready for their place at the board, or maybe you just need a new leader for that team. You want someone who is comfortable with the technology, but they don't need to be the smartest person on the team. You need someone with vision, someone who knows how to motivate and organize a team of people around a mission. You need someone who can interface between the tech team members and the church at large and make sure that communication is a two-way street and that road is clear. Now, don't worry about hurting feelings here. We're like, well, I can't tell that leader that he can't be leader anymore. That would make him sad. What matters, guys, is the mission of your church. Now, don't get me wrong. I hope you handle it in a way where you're not a total jerk about making a leadership change. But I think if your church ministry leaders, your tech team leader, your women's ministry leader, if those leaders are really committed to the mission of the church and they're really humble about following Jesus, they'll understand, okay? Handle it in a good way, but don't be afraid to handle it, all right? That just because you make a change doesn't mean anything is wrong with your old tech leader, okay? So those are my 5 things I wish churches knew about their tech teams this year. I recognize that all 5 of these don't apply equally to every church. If you're in a tiny church, maybe you would consider joining forces with a nearby church and join your tech volunteers with their tech volunteers. The beautiful thing is that you can live stream with a phone, people, okay? Everyone can use Zoom now. So this represents a strategic shift, which means the tech team, right? Is that a fly? Seriously, guys? Anyways, this represents a strategic shift, which means as the tech team rises in importance, other things may become less important in a church. Other ministries may be de-emphasized a little bit, right? We can't be great at everything. We can't give everything the focus that it needs at all times. And sometimes, let's just be honest, some ministries have they've outlived their effectiveness. All right? How many Adventist churches out there, if you're not Adventist, you're not going to get this, but how many Adventist churches out there still do in-gathering, right? If you are, well, bless you if that really works out for you. But I think most churches have realized that this sort of thing is not as effective as it used to be. And so maybe devoting resources and personnel to it is not the best use of our resources or personnel, okay? Now, the goal of this video is to help you shift in a coordinated way to meet the changes that are coming and have come. Sometimes you add responsibility to a team, but you don't change the way you communicate or fund that team. And that can cause frustration or dysfunction. Change intentionally and strategically. That's the name of the game these days, all right? I wish you all the best. Please stay safe out there. I'll see you next week with another video. I think we're going to be talking about Adventist in the news again, so that'll be fun. I love those. All right, peace.